Hi guys, I hope you are doing well. Let's we start. For example, in the I don't know 13 or 14 session, I explain you all of the materials that all of the basic materials related to the SimaPro software about the LCA assessment and something like that. Now focus on the software. Now I opened the SimaPro software. In this session, I only explain to you that all of the, for example, section of this project of this software. Now, for example, I define one project because I want that all of the this session would be applicable and accessible. So I define, for example, sample. Um, First, for example, if you want that, for example, after you open and, for example, you know that I press the new button, then after that, you should, for example, select your library based on your work. Also, for example, the tick of the method should be always on. It is this is the mandatory. But for example, for the selection, the library you have has, for example, several options. So agri-food, footprint, economic allocation, energy gross allocation, mass allocation, eco-event, and ELCD. You can input output database, industry data, Swiss input output database, UCLA, CII. That, for example, based on your work, you can, for example, select for example, your methodology. And always, for example, for every methodology, when you tick on, for example, I tick on this, for example, you can see that, for example, several information that you should read it carefully, and you can see that, for example, this methodology is good for you or no. That, for example, this is on for example, allocation cut off by in classification, and also the system and unit that I explained to you in the slide. Mass allocation, industrial, for example, I choose one. This. For example, it has a very brief, for example, description. This library contains data as collected by industry associations such as Plastic Europe, World Steel, or IRAS. Several data sets were updated and added in April 2015, September 2015, and March 2016, December 2017, and April 2018. And also for the any other, that's, for example, this, you can see that, for example, the explanation. Let's we start, for example, for example, I select this. And also you can, for example, select all of the library that I cannot recommend it, because this is you should always, for example, for comparison and any live assessment, you should have a single base, not several base. For example, I choose one. So in this case, that you choose that your appropriate library. Also, for example, I explained to you in the previously, in the LCA, in the previous session. In the LCA, for example, SimaPro, we have a one type that's for the wizard. If we want, for example, do a quick, for example, do a quick LCA assessment, I use the wizard that you can see it. That I explained to you several sample from the this in the, for example, in the future. And also you have, for example, goal and a scope. You should define author, comment, and also reason, goal, practitioner, functional unit, recent photo, and alternative scenarios, and also suffix, and also you can protect it and define a password for this. This is the library that I explained to you, but I should be notified that, for example, after working 3 years with the SimaPro software, and I have worked, I am not, for example, memorized and, for example, fully understand each of the library, because for this you should at first work with it, and also every time you want to select the, for example, library, you should read this section carefully to choose it or not. So, for example, solely, I don't know. I can I don't I can I cannot inform that any person know fully totally that's all of the libraries, because based on our application we can select the best library for it. And also we have, for example, the inventory. We have several process here about the material, about the energy, about the transport, about the processing, about the use, about the waste scenario, and about the waste treatment. Waste treatment, agriculture, bio-waste, chemicals, fuels, ingredient, landfill, metals, nuclear waste, recycling, power plant, plastic, power board. For example, for the power plant, you have a market, fly ash and scrubber sludge, that you can see three options. And for example, for the energy, for example, for the cogeneration, for example, by the coal, that you can see the transformation and has a several data. So that based on your project, you should, for example, select the best one. And also, for example, fuels, we can also market several fuels. And also for the landfill, you can use the internal material of the landfill and something. And for example, for the metals market, you can see all of this. And this is very custom for the all of the processes that you can see it in this software. And also the product stage, that we define the life cycle, disposal scenario, disassembly or reuse. That, for example, I explained to you in the, for example, in the one sample project about this. And also the system description, that you can see the system description. And also every time you can press the view button, and you can feel all of them. And also the waste type, that, for example, for every of this, you can see several type of the waste type for the different materials, coppers, papers, and pure, and something like that. And also you had, for example, in the that if you consider, for example, this session, you can see the that I explained to you previously. Wizard is solely related to the, for example, simple and fast RCA study. But for example, you can see that we have a four section here: goal and scope, inventory, impact assessment, and interpretation. That all of them are also, for example, I explained to you completely in the LCA PowerPoints in the previous session. That, for example, you should one by one do it. So in the SimaPro software, you can easily these uh, items that according to the LCA assessment. For example, when you want to do a LCA assessment, you should, for example, fill it, that I explained to you, and libraries that I explained to you, the processes. And sometimes, for example, finding one processes that I am not, for example, I want to model the photovoltaic module, and also finding one photovoltaic module here is very boring. But you have another option. You go to the find, and for example, I search photovoltaic and find. It takes a real bit time. 'Cause I don't know. My laptop is old and does not work very well. I should wait. 40%, 41%. Oh, mamma mia. Suddenly goes after the 50% due to my experience, or 60% runs very fast. But at first, it is very, very slow, that you can see. Oh, 50%, 51%, 52%, 53. Oh, oh, you can see. That, for example, you can say, for example, several categories based on the type. If you want to choose the material, energy, final waste flow, energy, and for example, after the energy material, that's different type. A photovoltaic laminates, photovoltaic panel, photovoltaic cells, and something like that. That you can choose the best option for yourself. That's about your project. Anyway, for example, I don't know, randomly, I select this. It's related to the energy, for example. And you press the button of go to, and you can find that, for example, is related to what? Electricity by fuel, section, and section of the electricity by fuel, subsection photovoltaic, and then transformation, and also the infrastructure. So with this type of the methodology I explained to you, you can find any materials much easier. That for example, you want you in comparison, for example, you should distinguish that's the one processes on one material related to which category. For example, use, for example, processing, transport, energy, and something like that. I think this methodology is much easier than this. And also the product is, and also the system description, waste sub parameter. And when we go to the impact assessment, in the impact assessment, you should select the methodology. Because I explained to you in the previous session, and for example, after the LCI, that we insert the material and energy flow on one processes on one product, we should select the best option and methodology to investigate it, and for example, categorize it to the, for example, and also do the normalization, weighting factor, and something like that. That we have several methods, European method, that also you can, in this choice, you can, for example, select CMLII baseline, for example, EU 25, EU 25 plus C 2000, Netherlands, and something like that. And for each of the option that you selected, you can, for example, read this session and also give information about it. And also the global recipe method, that usually I will work with it, and also North American method, bees, and TRCI two ones, and also the others. Oh, we don't have any option here. Single issue, for example, cumulative energy demand, LHV, cumulative energy demand, cumulative exergy demand, ecosystem damage potential, IPCC, selected LCI is the resource additional, and something like that. That for every all of them, we have a description here that you should read it. And that I should emphasize that even if even I don't know exactly that, for example, all of this method, all of the methodology and something like that. When I strongly recommended that for learning one software very good, you should do a sample project. And after, for example, I don't know, 5 or 6 projects, you can have a gain information, and you receive a master level for this software. For example, honestly, I should confess that no, I don't know everything about every method. But for example, in one project that for example, I want to model the photovoltaic cell, and also I want to calculate the energy PB, which is a abbreviation for energy period. I use this method to do. I use this method, and for example, if I want to do the and calculated during the production of operation and maintenance stage. Also, for example, the environmental pollution produce, I don't know, for 10 square meter photovoltaic cell, or for 2 peak kilowatt hour, I use this method. So all of this method, so in summary or in conclusion, for selecting the best method, you should always read this session and make a decision for your project. Also, we have the calculation set up here, but for example, after you select the method, this section will be active, that, for example, you can set up the you can select the method and also the calculation function, product, current library, replacing library, and something like that. That I will explain to you in the other session. And also you have the interpretation. You can, for example, um, after you do the LCI and LCIA, you can copy paste the interpretation here, because, for example, you have a when you do a project, I recommended it. You can write a paper, you can write, for example, report for your owner or a stakeholder in the project. And for example, also, for example, after you do the analysis, briefly, you can write the interpretation result here for yourself. And also, for example, we have a document list that, for example, for every library, for example, for methodology and library, you can see the comment that in this, for example, in this web page, and also for method in this web page, and also, for example, you have a some facility if you have a problems about the method and, for example, the library, you can email to this. Also, you have a literature survey references about the eco event, and also about the others, that this is a literature that you can see. For example, agri footprint or eco event, you can see here an explanation here. That, for example, you can find the reference for this. For example, here you can find the reference. Here you can find the reference and something like this. And also you have a substances here that, for example, you can use it for the economic issue and waterborne issue and raw materials. You can see everything about it. And you can, for example, in some cases you want to add the materials, for example, one other types of the and also in this case you can see the CAS number in the SimaPro software. And also you can see the unit, and also you can edit the unit here. And also in general you can see the unit, your work, and also you can add a new one or edit the new one. And also, for example, BTU, also you can see use by and something like that. It is not very important. About the quantities, you can see all of the amount, area, currency, all of the quantities is mentioned. And also, for example, you can for your project, for example, for better view, you can select one figure or one image here, or for example, also you can insert the another image or something like that. And also here you can new project, open project, close project, new SimaPro database, print setup, import and export the result and something like that. That I will explain to you in the another session. Copy paste, convert to constant, false, calculated, that is active when you want to run one project, and also some tools about the languages. For example, you can select your languages, and also SimaPro share and collect option, external link manager, project library, and database development. And also the window you can see here, and also some, for example, help manual, data manual, requirement report, and you can if you have a problem for your help, you can, for example, search in internet, Google, or for example, search in the help and something like that. Now this session is finished. I explained to you that, for example, all of the important, introduce you the basic and the view of the SimaPro software. So this session is finished. I hope you have a nice time, and goodbye.